Yo, this is Lefty. So, we got a huge day of combat sports today. Um, it's going to start probably in 3 or 4 hours. I figured I'd get a quick video out. Last week we did well. We went 3-0, I think, and it was like minus 170 something odds. And we're going to look to do a similar play today. There's a lot of fights. The odds are really chalky. We're talking minus 1,000 and over for some of them. We're looking for an angle to make money and keep the odds respectable. We're going to be at about minus 175 for the main boxing parlay. So let's get into that. Now, on the Top Rank pay-per-view, you've got a bunch of prospects fighting. I really like those type of fight nights. A lot of times they're more quantity than quality, but I'm just a fight fan. So we got Keyshawn Davis on the card for ESPN. He's like minus 15, minus 1,600, but we're gonna take him as a parlay builder. I wanted to take the knockout, but I want to make sure that we're getting as close to a lock as possible and just try to bankroll build, right? We're not looking to break the bank or get into, win the lottery. We're looking to systematically improve our bankroll over time. So Keyshawn Davis is the first one. Jared Anderson is fighting, I believe, an undefeated heavyweight named George Arias, but he's a heavyweight with less than a 50% knockout percentage. He had knockouts early in his career, and he really hasn't really put anybody away with any sort of frequency in his last, I'd say, 6 to 8 fights. And I think that's one of the reasons why Jared Anderson is getting matched with him, because Top Rank feels safe with their heavyweight that they're grooming to be a world titleist in the somewhat near future. So I'm taking Jared Anderson there. He's another one that's minus 12, minus 1,300, whatever it is. But once again, we're looking to bankroll build, right? On the co-main event for the Showtime Championship Boxing, we are looking at Brandon Lee. He's another guy that's a super heavy favorite, but once again, we're looking to systematically improve our bankroll over time. Okay, anything can happen in boxing. Brandon Lee was almost put away in his last fight, but he came back. I want to say he was the opener for that Showtime event, and there might have been some nerves. I'm not trying to make excuses, but whatever. He got caught. The point is, he got off the canvas on a big event, a big venue, and he didn't have to get up, but he got up. So that kind of shows me something about him on the inside that we previously didn't know. He's going against a guy named Pedro Campos. He's got a good record. He hasn't really fought the best competition. We're looking for Brandon Lee, and we could have took the knockout here, but once again, we don't want to get too results based and try to break the bank here. Let's just take Brandon Lee. He's the third leg of a 4-legger, and let's keep it moving. Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson on the main event of the ESPN boxing event today. Jared Anderson, I want to say, was the co-main. So Shakur Stevenson is in the main event. He's in his first fight at 135, going against a guy that has been at least 10 rounds. I want to say he's been 12 rounds before. Never been knocked out. The guy who's going against is undefeated as well. Shakur Stevenson is going into that fight carrying the most weight of his career inside the ring, and he's never been a huge finisher either. We could have took Stevenson on a decision. However, I feel more comfortable on the over of this fight. So it's got to be over 10.5, which means it's got to go halfway through the 11th round. and we're not going to risk the last 4.5 minutes on getting 2-1 odds when we could get minus 350 and just kind of save ourselves some stress on the back end. Stevenson would have to knock out a guy that's never been knocked out, or would have to beat a guy that's never been beaten in less than 11 full rounds. When Stevenson himself isn't a big puncher, let's go on the over here, lock in that bet. And even though we have 4 minus 1,000 or 3 minus 1,000 or more legs on this parlay, that Stevenson over, right? That Stevenson over gets us to minus 175, about the same odds as we had last week. I'd say that's not too bad. That's about as much of a lock as you can get. Stevenson would have to do something that, he just hasn't shown, especially at this new weight class, right? I just really like that play. Right now, we're 18-3. Let's just keep adding, right? Let's keep adding. Let's keep grinding. Let's keep climbing. Now, there's also a couple of other events. So the main event for the Showtime Championship Boxing is Brian Mendoza against Fundora. Fundora is a 154-pound champ. Is he a champ? I don't know. I probably should have looked that up before I got on here. But he's a 154-pounder that's 6'5.5". Huge. However, Fundora gives up his height. He likes to brawl at times. He likes to fight on the inside when, even though he's pretty good at it for his height, he still has the height and he doesn't have to put himself in harm's way. And I've seen him get clocked numerous times. He gets hit a lot. And eventually his number's going to come up. It might not be tonight, but his number's going to come up. Is Brian Mendoza the guy to do it? I'm not sure. Brian Mendoza has been in with good competition before and has showed himself well in those type of fights. However, if I were to pick two possible upsets for tonight that I would sprinkle on, right? Not a full bet, not a full, bet a whole bunch of units on it, but maybe 2-3 units, sprinkle on it, see what happens. And if you lose it, it doesn't hurt you, but if you win, it helps build your bankroll. I would go Jesse Magdaleno against Raymond Ford. Raymond Ford, he's one of those guys that has hand placement problems when he's in punching range. He's a southpaw. He's been bailed out before. He's fighting on DAZN. He's been bailed out before on the scorecards where the other guy definitely should have got the decision and they just gave it to this guy. So, and Magdaleno is a power puncher, right? He's been inactive lately for the last 3 years or so. However, there's definitely a window of opportunity there for him to cash in at plus 320. So we're going to sprinkle on that. And then Mendoza, we're going to sprinkle on at plus 650. 6.5 to 1 odds we could sprinkle on. If we lose, we lose. That's not an official prediction for the channel. But personally, I am sprinkling on Magdaleno and Mendoza. Not in a parlay and separate bets, but I will sprinkle on it, see what happens. Nothing crazy, though. There's also UFC on today. The UFC, it's harder to predict than boxing for me, so I like to keep things safe. And I had a couple parlay ideas for that. I think I want to say we're 3-1 in UFC on the channel. So what I was thinking was Rob Font against Adrian Yanez. Rob Font, my heart wants to go with him because he's Puerto Rican. I'm Puerto Rican, but this is about money. So Rob Font hasn't had the best of the best portion of his career in his last 3 or 4 fights, right? He's lost, and he's lost getting beat up. And I think he's in a prime position to do the same thing here against a young Adrian Yanez that UFC is trying to push toward title contention. Rob Font, if he loses his fight, he might be on his way out of the UFC. I think he's like 1-4 or 1-3 in his last 4 or 5 fights. So we're gonna go Yanez here, and then we're gonna go for Gilbert Burns and the Masvidal fight. We like that fight to start round 2. We like that fight to start round 2. We're not necessarily betting a winner in that fight, even though I think Burns is gonna win it. But we are gonna sweat out 5 minutes, see if it goes to round 2. And in the main event, Pereira against Adesanya, they've gone rounds every single fight they've had, whether it was kickboxing or UFC, which they've faced each other twice, maybe twice, or maybe this is the second time. But they've gone rounds. And Adesanya, I don't know how you don't try to take him down if you're Adesanya, right? You got knocked out in round 5, the last fight you had with him, right? He's got the edge on the feet. He just does. Pereira usually takes some time for him to get going, and I think it's going to take some time for them to feel each other out a little bit. Usually in these championship fights on big pay-per-views, they don't throw it all out there early. So that first round is usually in the bag. What we are going to do is sweat out that second round and see if Adesanya gets some takedowns or see if they're still feeling each other out. And then usually what happens in these UFC pay-per-view main events, rounds 3, 4, and 5 are the explosive rounds. We are going for this fight to start round 3. So round 1 should be a gimme. Round 2, we could sweat out a little bit. And before this fight gets really, really good in rounds 3, 4, and 5, we're getting out of there. And we're picking this fight to start round 3. We are getting, for that 3-legger, we're getting plus 181 odds. So if you bet $100, you're going to get back 281. All right? That's the first parlay for UFC. Second parlay is the opener for the pay-per-view. Rosas. I like him. He's a grappler. They put him there to showcase him. He's not there to lose. So, and UFC is going to pump this guy up fast. So we're going to go with him. We're going to go with Kevin Holland against Ponzinibbio. Ponzinibbio is getting long in the tooth. Kevin Holland is looking for a win and looking to get back in the rankings and put himself in a position to contend. He's not there to lose either. And Gilbert Burns is probably the biggest favorite on the whole card, right? He's minus 475. But we're going to take those odds. We're going to pair it with Rosas and Holland and get us plus 146. So basically plus 150 basically. If you bet 100 on that, you get back 250. And that's as much of a lock as you can do in the UFC basically on a 3-legger. So we're going to go those two along with the boxing parlay that I mentioned earlier at minus 175, and we're going to sprinkle on Magdaleno and Mendoza in separate bets. But those sprinkles don't count toward our total record. Right now we're 18-3, and I want to say we're 3-1 on UFC. Let's see how we do this week. And, enjoy a crazy night of fights. See ya. Peace.